ask you now then. When I first came across you, probably about little over a year ago, I thought, this is a very outspoken northerner. We're going to get on like a house on fire. Did you feel the same way?
Well, I did wonder, who's this mince bloke that seems to be all over everywhere? I can't have that. I'm going to have to try and upstage the bugger.
Yeah, well, you did a good job. You did a good job.
I would probably say I'm a bit of a, I don't know if you're the same, I'm a bit of a Marmite individual. And I think a lot of people think because I'm outspoken that that's some way negative. But the reason I'm outspoken is because it's usually when I feel passionately about something. And that's just the way I've always been. And that's always the way I've sort of been brought up, I suppose.
No, I was going to say, do you think it is a northern thing? Because I think we do tend to speak our minds, and I think where we come from.
Because you're a northerner in the north, where I'm a northerner in the south.
Yeah.
And a very interesting thing is how you receive, because some people will say to me, "Oh, you're a little bit curt." Well, actually, I'm not. I just get to the point a lot quicker, and I don't go all around the houses, pardon the pun, to get to the point. What is the point of just talking around a subject? I'll say it how it is. I'm not going to bullshit you. You're going to get, the truth from me. And hopefully, people respect you for that. I'm not, like I say, I'm a Marmite sort of person. Not everybody appreciates that.
But that's part and parcel of being from the north, isn't it? We are raised that way. If your parents asked you a question and you gave them a roundabout answer, they'd say, what are you talking about? Give me a straight answer and stop being daft. But that's the way that at least a lot of the people I know, and yeah, we might be outspoken, but I think it's just plain speaking, isn't it, really, more than anything?
Yeah. And I'm one of those. It's interesting because a lot of people have a misconception about me. Things are said or have been said about me without actually knowing me. And I think that frustrates me a little bit, is that you don't have the right to form an opinion about me until you actually know who I am. And there's a lot of things that people don't know about me, but they make the assumption, and they totally get it wrong.
What do you reckon what do you think people think about you that they shouldn't? Set the record straight.
I think because I am quite outspoken, they think I'm going charging in without actually understanding what I'm talking about. And what I've been taught by my wonderful parents is that if you have an opinion, check out all the facts and understand both sides of the argument before you make a decision on which side you're going to lean on. And I think people sometimes, because I might go in all guns blazing, think it's just the passion and the emotion. Oh, she's a little bit emotional. It's not. I've usually got a measured opinion because I've researched the subject, whatever it might be. And I think that's fair enough. But
what I wanted to ask you is, you work with your husband, Nigel, right?
Yeah.
How does that work? Because I could not envisage working closely. And I know it's not an uncommon thing within a state agency. There are husband and wife teams out there. How does it work on a day-to-day basis?
So again, it's another interesting thing. And again, it's, people will have a misconception. Oh, you haven't killed each other yet. I'm a very strong believer in marriage and love. And I know that sounds a bit cheesy. And my opinion is, if you love somebody and you want to spend the rest of your life with them, spending every day with them is a perfect scenario. And don't get me wrong, we don't get on all of the time because we're both quite strong characters. And it is very interesting in the office, when the staff retreat to the panic room when they know something's going on. But, I look at couples that go on holiday separately and they don't spend any time together. That's not why I want to be with somebody. I want to be with somebody as often as I can. Life's too short to be in that position, and we get on. We laugh.
I get that, but there's challenges though, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you just want to come home from work and go, "Oh God, that guy Nigel at work today, what a prick," and you want to be able to mouth off, but really you'll be taking work home with you, but you're probably also taking home into work, aren't you?
No.
No.
It's interesting because, I think was it Nigel Reasoner said something about you have your 10-minute rant or something like that. You have your moment. We don't live that far away from the office, but what we try and do is we say, right, anything we want to get off our chest, we do on the way home in the car. And by the time you get home, it's home. It was more difficult when I was working at home when I first started the business because home and business were intertwined. Whereas now I can make that distinction. And to be honest, if I think back to what I used to do with particular jobs, I used to work shifts for the police, and I could go a week without seeing Nigel.
Yeah.
And some people go, yeah, that's absolutely great. But actually, no, it wasn't great, because when you're in a relationship with someone, surely the point is you want to be with them. But don't get me wrong, we have our own interests and our own space, but it just works for us. I know it sounds trite, but it does. And we do have, we do row. Everybody rows. But
so do your team, do they know when something's up? Do they sort of just all look at each other and go, not today. Today's not a good day.
No, not at all. Because again, if we're gonna disagree about something, we try and do it not, in the public eye. But we don't disagree about much, to be honest. We get on, and I wouldn't be married to him for nearly. Was it now? I got married in '99. So and I've been with him since I was 21, and so that's 20 something years.
And how long have you been working together then for? How long? So tell us about establishing because I think this is fascinating. I would classify you and people like, say, another outspoken northerner that we love, Tom McGee, as not your typical franchisees, because you've got an individual sort of presence, you've got an individual opinion. If I didn't know better, Zoe, and again, this is probably just where I came from and how I was educated or miseducated. I was always taught that corporates and franchisers did things, I don't know, they had a different way of working. Perhaps for certain of those businesses, they didn't have a great reputation amongst, certainly independent agents never had any good to say about corporates whatsoever. Yet you guys, if I didn't know better, I'd say you're as good an independent agent as it gets. But clearly, you have that backing from the Belvoir franchise group. So
I think
how did that come about?
How did we get here? Interestingly, Nigel was self-employed first, and he used to spray cars for a living.
Right.
Imagine that. So we had a franchise, and I was working. And it was always the plan that I was going to. I hate being an employee. I may have to do it again one day, but I don't like being told what to do. So it was like, well, what are we going to do? So Nigel was thriving being self-employed, and you can see it's not easy. It isn't easy. Don't get me wrong, but you just have that element of freedom. So we looked around at, I've always worked in a people industry. I've always been public facing. So we thought, well, what can we do? So we looked at travel agents and lettings or estate agents. Went to franchise exhibition, because what we didn't want to do is just set up without any support whatsoever. And there are some really great independents, but there are some really crap ones as well, because you can clearly see that they don't have that support and that guidance and that training. 100%. And we set up 18 years ago. And if I think back to them, we didn't have, if you like, the Facebook groups that we have now, like the Agent Rainmakers, the Agency Growth Strategies, Kerfuffle. We didn't have any of that. So Lord knows how those people fared then. But, we were fortunate. We got branding, package of, training, support. And I don't think from a cold start, you could have done it any other way and succeeded. And I think it's then becomes a balance between, is it the branding of Belvoir, or is it the individual? Because if you think about it, it's like children, isn't it? We all get the same training at the same start, and it's how that's reflected.
It's a nice way of looking at it.
Nature, nurture. Are we all, every franchise owner, the same? No, we're not. Do we all do things the same? No, we're not. But I strive to be. I am a perfectionist, and it's just getting that right. I mean, I know it works because we had a really horrible complaint to the Ombudsman, absolutely awful. I think the landlord made 7 or 8 complaints about us, and we got the outcome this week, and I did a screaming lap of the office because she got nothing. And that's because of the training that I've had, and the fact that I make sure we do everything right.
And in terms of how the Ombudsman dealt with you, did you feel that they were sort of fair and impartial? Did they just leave you to it? Because many people don't have to deal with them until they have to deal with them. So we all pay our subs to them every month, but until you have a major fallout with somebody, you never really know how they're going to treat you. How are they?
It was interesting because in 18 years I've had 2 complaints to the Ombudsman, and they were both very, very different experiences. Yeah. Both decent outcome. One was a few years ago, I think it was about 6 years ago. This one, to be honest, they were great. They told, it takes time. I think it all started like November, so it's trundled on for sort of several months. And I think that's the worst part of it, is the unknown. But they don't know. Someone contacted me and said they'd got the complaint. They then said, we need you to supply your evidence. They gave you a time frame to supply it. They acknowledged everything that we'd sent through. The actual, adjudicator contacted me and said, I'm reviewing your evidence. I actually spoke with him a couple of times because there were a couple of things he couldn't find that I'd already sent him, because there was so much information that I had sent him. And he was great. He's impartial because he's an adjudicator, but I'd say the experience was a positive one. Obviously the outcome was as well. So
good. No, I'm glad. It's important, I think, that the public have somebody that will deal with their complaints, but I think it's also important that the people dealing with those complaints understand what it is that we as agents have to put up with sometimes from members of the public. And it's fair to say that we're not always treated nicely, are we?
No, it's interesting because Alan Batt posted something this morning about losing a member of staff because of the way that they'd been treated. And I actually remarked on his post on Facebook that I've worked in mental health, I've worked for 2 police forces, 2 local authorities, and I've worked with young offenders. And the worst people I've ever had experience of have been in this industry. The way that people treat us is disgusting sometimes. And you would think, where I've been, you would think that, dealing with that, working in a police station front office, that you're going to get the worst treatment. No. So anyone that sticks it in this industry needs a medal, because it is. People don't understand, unless you've been in this industry, how appallingly you can get treated.
and you're on the hairy end of things, so you're
and I'm quite hard,
But you're mostly tenants, aren't you? You're dealing with lettings predominantly.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think that's where disgruntled tenants don't feel that they've got anything to lose whatsoever by having a pop at the agent, because they know it's not the landlord. They know it's an in-between. I'm not saying they're out to get their pound of flesh, but they don't deal with it. The example I always give is, if your boiler went off in the middle of if you had a broken boiler at home and you owned your own home, and you started ringing around plumbers to get somebody out on bank holiday weekend or whatever, how quickly are you going to be able to get the same job done? But yet somehow when tenants have the same issue, it's like, I need this doing now.
Yeah.
And it becomes a very aggressive fight.
Yeah. Their expectations are really high, but we're talking little book of Proptech here. There's certain tech that assists you as an agent. See how I did that, segued into that.
Just,
as an agent, there's tech out there that would help you. We work with a company called Fixflo.
Yes.
And you do as well.
Yeah.
And they have an out of hours set up that if someone's boiler did go, they have a service level agreement with AXA. That means they've got to call them within an hour and be out within 4. So that avoids that situation. It's amazing.
I love that situation. And last year, I think we wrote to all our landlords and said, hey, guys, we've got a great solution for out-of-hours repairs, and it's backed by AXA. And everybody went, some landlords went genuinely, they were really, really sort of happy about it. Some landlords thought, maybe this will would be an excuse for them to overuse the service or to get repairs done whilst the agent's sleeping. But to be honest with you, they have been superb in the way that they triage it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. We've had a couple of jobs that tenants think it's an emergency that AXA have then gone, because they could just send their guys out, couldn't they? Just make the money. But they've actually said, no, that's not an emergency, that can wait till Monday. And it's peace of mind, because I don't know about you, I've done the other out of hours thing where you get tenants phoning your mobile on a Sunday.
I've done
about
that.
A bulb that's gone.
Yeah. I've been out to but all sorts. Been out to tenants' houses on Christmas Eve just to top up the boiler with water and whatever else it is. I think it's part and parcel of running your own lettings and management business that you are occasionally going to have to double up as a temporary plumber or somebody that's just going to be able to calm the situation down. But it's amazing how some people some are amazing tenants, and I think they're great. They treat the property like it's their own, but they look after it. And then you've got the polar opposite, people who you think you take one look at and you think, how on earth do you survive in the adult world on your own without help? But it's just, not everybody's the same, I suppose.
No. And one thing, we're talking about going back to this offering that Kerfuffle have at the minute, this agent thing.
Well, you're all in on your segues now, aren't you, man?
Well, what I was going to say is, obviously there are elements of training there already, but one thing that Kerfuffle may want to consider is offering some sort of conflict resolution training. But obviously, because I've worked in mental health and because I worked in a police station dealing with, I don't want to be rude, but the dregs of society, I've learned conflict resolution by default, but not everyone understands how to deal with conflict. And I just think that would help a lot of agents, possibly who are on the cusp of, I've had enough of this and leaving the industry, because we don't want people, good people to leave the industry, and if that's something that you could offer agents, I'm sure that they would snap it up.
That is certainly something that I'm going to work at getting in there, because I think it is, like you say, it is needed. And sometimes it's the way that you respond to a problem that changes the entire structure, and also the way that you manage expectations, both with the landlord or tenant, or buyer or seller. It's an extremely emotive business, I think, because home is where the heart is, and we take it very, very personally.
But I think you've got to support your staff. We offer an employee assistance program, which basically, if they have any sort of problems, be it financial, mental health, anything, they've got a 24-hour helpline that they can call. And if it gets really bad, they've got, I think it's 6 free counselling sessions. So we get that through a supplier.
That's
again,
fantastic.
It's just.
Is that a new thing, Zoe? Or
No. It's we've always had it through. If I'm allowed to say Peninsula offer it, but I'm sure there are other providers as well. And I think it costs me £1.50 a month per member of staff. And it's just, what it's trying to do is avoid people going sick with mental health issues. So if you can catch it before you get to that point. But it's also
must be really important for them to know that you care enough to offer it. And it's not just about limiting sick days, but you've got a culture that will nurture their employee there as well. Yeah.
And hopefully retain them and keep, like you said, keep them in the office rather than being off sick.
So talk to me about your team. I've seen some of them on camera scuttling behind your chair as you're wearing your ground control to Major Tom headset.
I don't wear the headset anymore. I managed to get some of these.
Oh, I like the headset.
I'm not wealthy enough to get some.
I thought you were lining up planes to land and stuff. It was
taxi for mints. My team. Well, this is another thing that's taken me probably 18 years to get into this place, and I don't want to name drop, but unfortunately, fortunately, I attended a boot camp for managing and motivating your staff that was run by John Paul.
Okay.
And Adele Crocker is absolutely awesome. And I think something clicked in my brain. And since then, I've managed to pick the right ones. And it was interesting because I was saying to someone, we looked at our turnover of staff pre this. And I think I've gone through 26 staff in 18 months. And we're only a team of 5. So that's a lot of people to have gone through. So now I've got an apprentice, Ellie, who's been with me just over a year now. She's studying for a level 2. Jen, who I poached from a competitor, who's back office. And then I've got Dean, who started out as a negotiator, but now he's let me get this job title right, client and business support manager. So he's basically my right-hand man in lettings. And then obviously Nigel does sales and all the back office account side of things. Who needs pay prop, eh? When you've got Nigel.
Fantastic. but I must say there are services like PayProp and also we use Agent Pay from Agent OS, and I've got to tell you, it turns a pay run into, I mean, it used to be like a 2-day job for us. It's now a matter of hours, and it really does. I think open banking is a absolute revelation, and I think it's going to change a lot of people's lives. But let me ask you, when you talk about your team, obviously you've got some female members of staff there as well, and I know there's always, we never used to talk about it, but if you were to sort of deal with estate agents on a day-to-day basis like I do, or like and the people that you deal with within the industry, predominantly it is male. It seems to be a very male-dominated environment, and it wasn't always diverse. We didn't have sort of proud and women who were running their own businesses in their own right. It wasn't always the way, and the reason for that was that the natural progression up the chain, starting as say sort of trainee or negotiator, and then working up to sort of manager, women were often overlooked for the top jobs. What is it like being a woman in the industry today, and can you feel it changing?
First of all, I think one of the things we need to understand is it's not just this industry. Wherever you go, unfortunately, women are still met with negativity and misogyny to a degree. Now, I hope to God if this goes out, people are not going to think I'm some lefty bra-burning feminist. I'm not. But it's always, there are women in all industries, and I think this is one of the arguments that we have. It's just that a lot of us just head down, arse up and get on with it, and don't make a fuss about it. There are, we all know what the glass ceiling is, and unfortunately across, employment as generally, there are glass ceilings. When you look at mainly, directors of companies, boards of directors, predominantly are men, white men of a certain age. You've got to wonder, are we any better than when we were 20 years ago? I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, whatever I say now is going to be controversial, and not everyone's going to agree with what I've got to say. And I think one of the arguments I would have is you can only really have a true opinion of how it feels for a woman to be in this industry if you're a woman. You can empathise as a man, and you can acknowledge there's a problem, but realistically, until you've been treated like some of us have been, not necessarily in this industry, but others, it's like anything. It's like any prejudice, isn't it? Be it racism, be it sexism, whatever. Until you've actually been there, I would never comment on how it feels to be treated as a black person, because I can't, because I've not lived that. I've not walked in their shoes. I can feel and empathise, but I'm never really going to truly know how it feels. And I think that's the thing. You can see that there are women in high positions in this industry. A lot of the people that I have a lot of respect for have worked their way up. But I think it's been they've clawed their way up in some respects.
So how do we change it? Because when I hear you say stuff like that, I think, that it ever was so, and it's not just our industry, but it's life in general. But how do we actively go about changing it? Because there are some negative attitudes out there, but I find our industry extremely, definitely recently, I mean, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but over the past sort of 2 years, our industry has become very woke in terms of you know, it's cuddly and it's feely and it's touchy. We know we do tremendous amounts of mental health work now. We're doing community work, and not just the stuff that they give you as a sentence at the Crown Court, but like proper hands-on helping communities. We're out there trying to be nice people. We are, as an industry, we adopt very quickly a certain line. So do you not feel that if there was any industry capable of this change, it's this one?
I think there's a lot of work still to be done, but I don't feel as I've felt in previous jobs. Whether that's because I'm the boss, I don't know. But I've been in environments which you might find hard to believe, where I've been bullied. Now, I've not stood for it.
Yeah.
Again, because I am a strong person and I wouldn't stand for it. But I can see how I turned up to chair a meeting and was asked to make the coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
No, but you just get on with it. You just, there's, like I said, there's a long way to go, but you've got to really strip it back. Who is creating this split between men and women? It's how you bring your children up. It's how you not enforce, that's too strong, but how you create their moral compass. Because by the time you get to our age, it's probably too late, because your opinions, it's very, very rare someone's going to change their opinion at this stage in life because they felt that way for a long time. Now, don't get me wrong. I've read books about people in, right-wing fascist groups that have changed their tune. So it does happen. People have an epiphany or a eureka moment and then fully understand. But we've got to get right back to basics and teach our children about respect and about being kind and understanding, how you should treat each other. And I think that's where it needs to begin to reach the conclusion, and then hopefully over time, and it's not going to happen overnight. That's where we'll be. It's a difficult one. It really is, because there's no right or wrong answers. But one of the things is, I think it's how you are brought up and what morals your parents instill on you.
At some point, if you go back years ago, there was a generation of women that were taught that you don't talk back. You have dinner ready when he gets home. You put on a bit of lippy before he gets in. You make sure everything's clean, and that's a very 1950s housewife sort of way of looking at how a woman should behave. But is that education still out there? Have we changed it? Do we understand that, everybody has equal responsibilities in the household?
Clearly not, because if we had, we wouldn't be in this position where it's still happening, would we? And I think it reverts back to what we're saying. You have to start early enough. But if you've still got people, it's like anything. If you've still got people that believe that's the right way of doing things, and they're instilling that on their children or their grandchildren, it's still going to be there. I'm very, very fortunate that I've said to you before that I was taught by my parents to question everything, which obviously could be my downfall, because I do question everything and I try and understand everything. And I've I suppose been inclusive. I remember when I was at primary school coming home one day and saying to my mum, why are the other children picking on the brown children?
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand why someone would do that. And I think I've been very, very lucky that that's the way I've been brought up. But like I say, not everyone has been that fortunate. So, we need to look at how we change that. And it's, like I say, it's going to take time. This is very deep, isn't it?
It is, but I think it is.
Can we not just laugh about?
Don't worry, I'll put a comedy laugh track behind it every time you say something. No, but I think there is light at the end of the tunnel in that respect. I think we are, both as a society, but also as an industry, we're getting better at talking openly about these things. We're certainly getting better at trying to find ways of working with one another and understanding one another. That attitude that you spoke about in terms of racism and kids and so on, it's certainly not dead. God, we've got a long, long way to go, but we've come a long way as well. We should not forget that. There's an awful lot that's gone in the last 50 years.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, for anyone, this, you know, there's something like this is I feel very strongly about, because again, you wouldn't know this unless I told you. My degree's in social policy, and I actually my dissertation was about the rise of fascism.
See, she's
in
not
the
just
19th.
bolshy for no reason. There's, educational background there.
Yeah, and you know how that I sat and went through everything and tried to understand, going right back to the 1930s. And trying to draw a comparison in terms of how we were in the 1990s, because obviously we saw the rise of the BNP and Combat 18 and all that sort of stuff going on. And trying to understand that, I think I was ahead of my time, because if you look at where we were sort of last year with Donald Trump and all that sort of stuff, that's the place that I thought we were in the 90s, but I think it took a little bit more time than expected.
Do you not feel that with everything in life, we take a few steps forward, we take a few steps backwards, and we do the hokey cokey, if you like, and we shake it all about, and but we come back to it every few years. We're going to have either an extreme on one side or the other. So Donald Trump is and perhaps even our current Tory government that we have here at the moment is an expression of certain dissatisfaction. I mean, Brexit, look at that. It's an expression of certain things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, I can tell you what I think it's an expression of and whether or not I'm impressed by it. But I don't think that's going to be helpful. But I think you do get that shift where too much in the middle and for too long sometimes is not tolerated by our society. So if you look at, if you go back to sort of a almost a centrist left government like Tony Blair and that version of New Labour, wasn't everybody's sort of cup of tea if you were hard left Labour, and they saw him as more of a sort of Tory light version. But that centrist, it was perfect for the 90s. It was perfect for that sort of sense of
well, we were
like
just coming out of Thatcher, weren't Thatcherism?
Yeah, so. It was a tonic, wasn't it, to all of that. And so, but I think we end up going between that and then flipping then to these extremes where you've got extreme right-wing views and extreme left-wing views, and it seems to be that we're constantly grappling for that middle ground. Where
do you not think those views are always there? It's just that, if you like, the environment allows them to come out because of the state of society, the economy, social injustice that there is, and people just have had enough, and and because certain elements, if you like, politically allow you to voice that opinion more than you could have done in the past.
100%. And I think if you go back to something as difficult as, say, 1930s Germany, and you look at the environment there and the background and the political background and the socio-economic background, it's a tinderbox. All you had to do was wave a match near it and it was going to go up.
Yeah.
And so I think it's easy for the wrong people, if you like, to just be in the right place at the right time to give that message that then tips it all forward. But I don't even know how this is relevant to Proptech anymore. is the truth. But I know we did start out talking. We started talking about women's rights, and we ended up in Nazi Germany, which is unhelpful.
Sorry, it's my fault. You see, if I feel passionate about something, I can't help myself.
But I guess so. Then you feel that there is change, that it is changing.
Yeah, I think so, but I think we've just got to, the message has got to be right, and I think and the sentiment behind the message has got to be right. What we don't want is a load of blokes going, we better give these women a bit more of a stage, or give them a platform now, or else they'll be burning their bras and chaining themselves to the railings outside Kerfuffle headquarters.
Do you know that one of our almost the powerhouse behind Kerfuffle is none other than the very talented Emmeline Gale, who is the great niece of Emmeline Pankhurst.
Really?
Yeah, there you go. To talk about chaining yourself to railings, we've got
the
original deal here, just behind it.
I don't know. I'm just worried about if you put this stuff out about women's rights, that they're all going to bloody jump on me, aren't they? The swines out there.
No, they're not. Do you know what? It's actually very popular at the moment, in as much as people are talking about it. So you've got Nicola Broomham, who has a podcast of her own, but very much as part of that, the focus of that podcast is seems to be mental health, but also, women in the workplace and women in life in general. And I think it's great that we have these platforms and that we're able to speak openly about it. And I don't think any of us should worry about that.
No, and as long as you appreciate that we're all entitled to our opinion, and you might not necessarily agree with it. But as a woman, I think I'm justified in being able to say I can comment on this subject.
You have been running your business there in Bedford, isn't it? What's Bedford like as a town? How have they coped over the pandemic? Because I think if I'm not mistaken, video has changed the game for you guys. You became part sort of almost TV show presenter during the first lockdown. How did that work?
It's been very interesting. I mean, and it's been good for me because, like I said, Bedford's a very close-knit community, and everybody, I've been here 15 years, and I'm probably just about being accepted as a local. But there's been some awesome stuff gone on that I've come across because we did the hashtag Bedford Heroes videos to start with, and we talked with a lot of local people that were doing absolutely amazing things. Everyone's been really supportive, really kind. We sort of moved on from that, and we then did some like lockdown lowdowns, which was basically chatting with local businesses, and again some of the stuff that's been going on and how people have coped with the restrictions in terms of like we had a guy that sells beer, and it was like a pub that didn't do food, and he then went online and did some really exciting and interesting things with a local film company and had local musicians into his office, shop, whatever you call it. So it's been really good. I mean, one thing that's come off the back of this is Belvoir had their awards a week or so ago now, and we won the Community Champion Award.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, wasn't expected, and the whole reason for doing what we did wasn't to get an award at the end of it, but what it did for me is it felt like we'd done the right thing and we were doing good work, and that's continued sort of on now. We're still sort of doing odd videos, and we're still sort of reaching out. And it's interesting because a lot of agents just retreated and disappeared for a good few months. There's a couple of us out there doing good works, if you like, but most of them just...
hoping very much that will be remembered by the public as well, that the public will remember who was there to support them during that time. Or is that all in our heads? Do you reckon they care?
We get recognised more now, and there seems to be a lot more interaction online with the community, so that's a positive thing. And I think one of the things is, again, it's about your messaging, and we're not trying to do it to create more business for ourselves, but we want to feel that we're part of the community, and I do feel more that we are now than we ever were.
Okay, so let's play a game. Agree or disagree?
Oh God, right.
Estate agents. I'm gonna read you a statement. You have to say whether you agree or disagree with it. Estate agents feel like they have to convince the public that they're nice, caring, kind people.
Disagree. I think with that, some estate agents are great. I'm not going to name names, but there's some local ones that are absolutely fantastic and do a lot of good work. But I don't think they're doing it for that reason. The rest, I would say, don't give a shit.
Agree or disagree? Propertymark has been a bit of a shit show, but hopefully is getting its act together.
Agree. I don't hope it is. I know it is.
It really is starting to change, isn't it?
It is. I mean, one of the reasons I joined initially and got on the board is because I want to make if you want to make a difference, and this is the thing, all these haters out there, if you want to make a difference, the best way of doing that is from the inside. There's no point standing on the sidelines shouting about how you disagree with the way things are being run. Get your finger out and get involved.
Great.
Simple as that.
And you've got Nathan there now at the top.
Yeah.
He's been on the tools in the industry, so he knows what it's like from the coalface. I think that's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, he's very well respected. I don't know him myself personally, but people that I trust and respect have a lot of good things to say about him, and that speaks volumes as far as I'm concerned.
Agree or disagree? If you were selling your house, you would not use an online agent.
Agree.
Do you want to back that one up?
Why wouldn't you use an online agent?
Yeah.
Because if I was selling my house, I want to get taking a few smartphone photos and shoving it on a particular online portal is not going to sell your house. One of the things I've learned, because we're obviously branching out into high value sales in our office at the moment, and we're learning that there's more to taking a few snaps and a bit of we're delighted to offer this blah 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 property. I think you're not going to get what you want for your house by just shoving it on online. I just think there's more to it than that. I mean, I'm not probably explaining myself very well, but it's not just about the photos. It's about the everything else that you do, the time you take with the vendor, the time you take to present their property in its best light, the time you take to write up the details, the time you take to actually promote that property, which I don't think you can do if you just stick it on an online portal.
Agree or disagree? A state agency attracts a certain type of person to work in it.
Agree. But I think what we need to do as business owners is look further than the end of our nose for staff and employ not necessarily on the stereotyped estate agent, but on the values that you want them to have that should match yours.
Agree or disagree? Proptech has changed how you do your job.
Agree. And I think one of the things about Proptech, and I'm terrible for it because I see something new and shiny and I want it. You need somebody like Kerfuffle, for example, to help you wade through all the options that you've got, because otherwise you could end up spending a fortune on stuff that really isn't helping your business.
Textbook answer that. I'm going to tell Whaley. He'll send you another.
Oversized jumper.
There is one last question that I always ask everybody. You've given me an hour of your time, for which I'm extremely grateful.
Yeah.
If you could have an hour of anybody's time, dead or alive, who would it be?
I've got two answers, and one of them's quite an emotional one. I'd like to see my grandma again because I loved her to bits. But then, if you want a political, I'd love to have had a conversation with Nelson Mandela.
Okay. So if we could, in our magic sort of service station in the sky, if you could pull in next to Nelson Mandela and your grandma, that'd be a hell of a conversation.
Yeah, because what I'd say is, have you ever seen my Facebook feed? My grandma made my mum who she is, and on the back of that, I'm who I am. So if it wasn't for my grandma was way ahead of her time in a way she thought about the world, the way she understood it, and she never had the opportunity. If you go back to what you're saying about these women in the 50s or whatever, she didn't have the chance to go to university. She didn't have the chance to have a career because she had children, and that was her life. She lived her life through us then, because ironically, all the women in my family went to university, got a degree, and are successful.
And that's due to the sacrifices she made initially, right?
Yeah, and like I said, my mum wouldn't have the values that she has, that then she's instilled on me. So, I'm inherently proud of that, because I wouldn't be who I am as a result.
Agree or disagree, but in a real physical fight between Jerry Lyons and Chris Watkin, there'd be no clear winner because they'd both knock each other out.
No, I think they'd both start crying.
Like
babies.
Like babies. Right, thank you very much. Take care. I'll see you soon.
You too.